Um, I'm going to ask you to tell that story about Aaron Pryor, the Aaron Pryor story. Welcome to the fight game. He's Icewater. I'm Puma. And Shakira Stevenson has a fight coming up. And I want you to talk about that as well as other fights that are coming up. And then later on in the show, we're going to talk about one of our favorite fighters of all time, Aaron Pryor. So before we go to that, let's go to the Stevenson fight.
Shakira is going to be fighting on November 16th. He's fighting Edwin De Los Santos. I've heard a lot about De Los Santos, about what kind of fighter he is. He's kind of a no nonsense. He comes forward, fighting style guy. He has a lot of pop, a lot of pop. A lot of people thinking that Shakira might have, bit off more than he can chew because the guy does come forward and he doesn't stop. I went back and I watched one of his earlier fights. He likes to mix it up. It should be very interesting from that regard because he's going to throw his hands. And if you do not push him off or anything like that, too, it's going to take a lot of tactical moves by Shakira to keep this guy off of him because this guy's straightforward. He comes straight at you, and he has a high motor. So I'm looking forward to watching that fight. Definitely there. Also, too, we talked earlier about the fight that's coming up. I know it's not until December, but it's Devin Haney versus Regis Prograis. And watching them in a press conference talk about one another, going back and forth with the trainers and the dad and whatnot. But one thing I did notice was how big that Devin Haney was. He looked like a football player. He looked real big, and it's like he'd been working out or whatever, something where he just looks a lot bigger. And I heard they said before that they talked to Prograis about it, and we're talking about their 140. So Devin Haney's supposed to be moving up. Prograis is naturally 140, right? He's a 140 guy, champion. And he says, man, that dude looked like he 170 to me.
It sounds like he has some doubt. They're going to be fighting their junior welterweights. They're going to be fighting on pay-per-view on December 9th. And then Shakira Stevenson and De Los Santos are fighting for the vacant WBC lightweight championship. That's going to be on ESPN. What are some of the other fights?
Of course, we want to see what is that? November 23rd, David Benavidez versus Demetrius Andre. There's a lot on the line for both of these guys. It's a great opportunity, as we said before, for Benavidez to show what he's capable of doing, right? And Andre's always been saying everybody's ducking him. Now you get a shot, so where you gonna do that too? Also, if I'm not mistaken, Jamal Charlo's gonna fight. Is fighting on that undercard against. I think it might be Benavidez's one of his relatives, might be his brother. But I think it's going to be the return of Jamal Charlo. I am very excited to see where he is mentally. I mean, the physical part I'm not really worried about because they usually probably stay in good shape. But I want to see where he is mentally, trying to get back in the ring and trying to claim what was rightfully his. And just from that standpoint, knowing that this is a major step because he's been out of the ring with personal issues, some other stuff as well. So it'd be interesting to see how he reacts being back when trying to shake that rust off, and particularly if his opponent comes at him and kind of puts him in the situation.
So that'll be in Las Vegas on November 25th, Showtime pay-per-view. We're all looking forward to that. Any other fights we should watch out for?
That's pretty much it. Again, like you said, we want to see what happens. It may not be till next year, but we definitely want to see a couple of scenarios. We want to see what happens with Usyk, right? Usyk fighting Fury. They talked about December. There's no way in hell I think that that's going to happen to the end because the eye has to be cleared up. Talk about maybe February. The other thing, too, is to see what happens next for Terrence Crawford, what he wants to do. They all said there's a mention that he could have the rematch with Errol Spence Jr. maybe like in April, something to that effect. But I'm sure there are going to be some other deals coming up because we haven't seen Boots in this fight in a while, right? Again, as I called out, the Danny Garcias, we haven't seen them fight. We don't know if Keith Thurman is retired or whatever that is going on there. But again, like I said, I told you guys what we need to see because we saw that. I told you, I said it again. I'm gonna keep drumming it up since everyone, a lot of people are pumped up about this entertainment value. I told you the fight we need to see. Pete me and behind me. Floyd Mayweather Jr. versus Adrian Broner. Let's go. I will go out to Las Vegas and watch that fight just for entertainment purposes. And the whole week of overkill and selling and what have you, madness, all of the hype, it will be worth it. It will be worth it. So if you want to give me an entertainment fight that's not really connected to boxing, let me see that fight. Just because I can hear all of the stuff, get everybody hyped up, and then see Floyd back on his podium of being a master entertainer.
All right. Part of the show I'm looking forward to is talking about our man, Aaron the Hawk Pryor. And we're going to talk about your interview with him a few years ago. He was a light welterweight, about 5'6", wasn't a big guy, but fought like a giant. Fought like a giant. Born in Cincinnati, Ohio, and had a record of 39-1. His only loss, I believe, was to Bobby Joe Young, which was a TKO in the 7th round, and that was his 37th fight. But he went on to win 3 fights after that to end his career. I want you to tell the story about the interview because it's so entertaining. But first, give me your thoughts about Aaron Pryor.
The thing about Aaron Pryor, one, because me being from Ohio, I really enjoyed the way his body of work and the way he works is because of the fact that he's from Cincinnati, small dude, not the biggest guy in the world, but he had a motor that would not quit. And it was always, for some people, there was always some skepticism as to how he was winning his fights, right? So people always said something was going on. Of course, they talked about substance abuse. They said he could not just be that great, right? Because he's too little and he's fighting some monsters. There were certain fights that had nothing that they were going to have nothing to do with him. One of those people, and I always wanted to see it in the Battle for Ohio, was Ray Boom Boom Mancini. He never stepped to the challenge and wanted to step up against Pryor. We also know he never got moved up to welterweight, which probably would have been a big jump for him. And some of the guys he wanted to fight would probably come down to maybe 140. But Sugar Ray Leonard they never tangled. He never got a chance to fight Thomas Hearns, although he did fight Thomas Hearns in the amateurs and he did beat Thomas Hearns in the amateurs. That tape is still around. So small guy with a strong motor, very unorthodox. If you thought Manny Pacquiao was unorthodox, wait till you see the Aaron Pryor show, the way he did his thing. Go out there and watch Aaron Pryor, Google him and just watch him go to work. And he had no fear. He could several fights, he would get knocked down and just seemed like he was so out of control. But before you know it, within 2 or 3 rounds, he was right back in there making things happen. So he just had a very unorthodox style, lots of energy, lots of movement, and probably one of the best I've seen in a long time. And particularly being an Ohio native, he kind of really spoke to my heart. Plus, he seemed like just a genuine dude, just a genuine dude.
Yeah, if you want to check out some fights on YouTube, the Alexis Arguello fights were classic fights. He fought him twice in his 32nd fight, in his 34th fight. One he won by TKO, the other by knockout. And Alexis Arguello wasn't anybody to sneeze at. He was a primetime fighter, and that's when people really started, to me, really started taking note. He had some other fights before that, but that really kind of put him on the stage. And I want to let you go in the story with him, but before you do that, I want to talk about some of the other things he accomplished. He was part of the Olympic team, I think in 1975, Mexico City lightweight. He took the silver medal in that, and so has just an incredible amateur record. Like you said, he beat Thomas Hearns. That fight is on YouTube too. If you want to watch that, Hearns didn't want no parts of that, and Hearns is like what, about 6'2" at the time, and you had the Hawk at 5'6", and you're thinking, okay, this is gonna be a cakewalk for Hearns, and he was just, I mean, just going at Hearns like like he had pork chop drawers on, and the Hawk was a Doberman pincher. I mean, he just had that energy and style that you could not get this guy off you once he got started getting on you.
No doubt, no doubt. One last other fight before you jump into the story is I just ran across this fight the other day, and it was a hell of a fight because these were two guys that were really tough fighters, and one was kind of seemed like he was getting mad at the end, but it was a hell of a fight of a style. And I'm talking about the shoulder roll and the movement. And the fight is Vinny Pazienza versus Roger Mayweather, or I call Uncle Roger. So Floyd Mayweather's uncle, who was in his corner for years, fighting Rennie Pazzi, it's a very entertaining fight, banging one, not, but near the end, you get to see where that simple Floyd Mayweather and the Mayweather family trait, the jewel that they had to protect themselves, that shoulder roll played a major part to make it more interesting. So I suggest that you watch that fight. So without further ado, here we go.
One of my favorite stories of all time.
Okay, so the let me set the scene. I was a sports reporter / sports editor for a newspaper in Columbus, Ohio called the Columbus Post, and from time to time we would receive different notices, press releases as to events or opportunities coming up to be able to see certain people. And one time there was a press release on some type of event, or I think it was a charity, and then they said our guest speaker, I think it had to do with homelessness and also feeding the people that are hungry, right? People that needed meals. So just trying to do that. And they brought in, they had Aaron Pryor as one of their guest speakers, and he was there. So I was like, okay. So I said, well, I'm gonna run over here. It was in Columbus. Let me run over here and see what's going on, because I love Aaron Pryor. I was like, this is a great opportunity. And I can talk about what the cause is, right? So I get over to the place where they're having it at, and I saw a lot of people like leaving. I was like, man, was I late? And I'm looking around, and I walk into a room, and I saw one person. I said, what the? And I look over and I see Aaron Pryor. I was like, oh man. And there's nobody else in there. It's just myself and Aaron Pryor. And he said, hey, hey, Mr. Pryor, Aaron, how you doing? He's like, oh, I'm doing good. I said, you have a few minutes? He said, sure. So we start chopping it up, start talking about this cause, because of course I had to do a story about why he's there. And then he said, I'd like to ask you some questions about boxing too. He's like, oh yeah, sure. And I was like, I love your career. You really stood out. I said, I'm glad things are working out for you now, because he was having some issues in the past. And so I said, I'm just so happy for you. He's like, oh man, thank you. And he's telling me this whole story about everything. So then at that point, we get near the end. I said, well, we're getting near the end. I just want to know if I can ask you a couple more questions. He's like, sure. I said, I really only have one more question. And he goes, okay, go ahead. Do it, shoot. And he's smiling and everything. I said, okay, great. I said, I just got one question. And he looked at me and he says, uh-oh. He knew it was coming down the pipe. He go, uh-oh. Like, oh, hell no. I was like, I just want to know what was in the mix, the bottle, the mix, the mix, the mix. And what I'm talking about is I think it was the second fight with Alexis Arguello, his trainer, Panama Lewis, was in the corner. And Aaron Pryor seemed to be dragging a little bit. Seems as if Alexis Arguello was actually landing more punches, right? And it seems as if Aaron Pryor started to get a little weary. So he said, you're all right? Throwing water on him and trying to slap him. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Pryor just kind of, and he says, Panama Lewis says, give me the bottle. Give me the bottle. Water. And they go over to hand him the bottle. And he grabs it. He looks at the bottle. Panama Lewis does go say, not that one. Not that one. The mix, the one I mixed. And whoever's in the corner grabs the bottle and they hand it to Panama Lewis, and he gives it to Aaron Pryor. And it seems like that next round his energy went up and everything too. So for years, there have been speculation as to what was in that bottle, from everything to some people think it was some kind of liquid steroids or something to kind of get him pumped up to be able to go out there and have this energy, right? Some people would say it was so crazy that they thought they was giving Aaron Pryor peppermint schnapps. I'm like, how is that possible when you have alcohol, it brings you down, right? Doesn't give you energy. So they had all these different scenarios and things like that too. So I said, Aaron, what's in the mix? I said, what's in the bottle? The mix. And he looked at me like, you really want to know? I was like, yeah. And he looked real close. And then he got quiet and he looked back and he says, Jesus, the love of Jesus. He said, the love of Jesus, because he was telling me, because he really had turned his life around. serving the Lord. I said, what's in the bottle, man? What's in the mix? The mix, you can tell me. And he said, you want to know? I said, Jay said, the love of Jesus. I said, oh my God.
And took off.
And then he left and started laughing when he went away. I was like, you know what, man? I want to thank you because you have been such a great dude right now with this time, and you laugh about the situation. He had no worries, man.
Yeah.
He had no worries. One thing, he was so humble. I'll say this one last thing about him. From what I understand, people used to always ask him about money, and he made a decent amount of money. He took care of a lot of people, and he made a lot of money. Some people said he squandered in a lot, like Mike Tyson just kind of flushed it, or other people just kind of used him for his money. And Pryor said, man, I come from nothing. I'm not used to anything. The money is never was for me. It's always for my family. He said, because I don't need anything. That's what he said. I don't need anything. I'm good. Put me in the ring. I'll fight. I do what I got to do. I'm taken care of. Make sure I'm good. Take care of my family. When he said, when it came to the money, he said, that money wasn't for me. Same like what Mike Tyson said. He said, I had all that money. And everybody said how crazy it was. I wasn't saving it. He said, saving it. If I have it, I'm gonna spend it. So I buy lions, tigers, and bears.
Yeah.
Like, what you want me to do? I'm a simple dude. I don't need all that.
Right. So he kicked the drug habit in 1993. He remained drug-free up until his death at 2016. He made it to the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 1996. He also was inducted into the Houston Boxing Hall of Fame in 2014. But he's always been my favorite character because he was the guy that, for the little guys like me, he was the guy that you're like, there's no guy big enough to take care of Aaron Pryor, and he wasn't afraid. And he taught little guys like me not to be afraid of fighting somebody bigger and just getting on them and not letting them go until that guy says, okay, I quit.
Yeah, amazing, man. Great personality. Like I said, I was so happy to finally meet him. One of my buddies know how big a fan I was of Aaron Pryor's, that he saw something online. He was able to grab a autographed boxing glove with Aaron Pryor's signature on it. I still have that to this day. That I love the Hawk, man. What time is it? Hawk time.
Standing in the corner, just that had to scare you. Him standing in the corner, just looking at you, just total focus, like you gotta go down. You gotta go.
And you gotta be thinking those big guys. Like, look at this 5'6" little mother.
It's crazy.
What you gonna do? You ain't gonna. You can't even squash a bug.
Him like looking like a little kid, just like a machine, just coming at you. It was a joy. If you get a chance to watch Aaron Pryor, some of the fights on YouTube, please do yourself a favor.
Hey, filled with the mix and the love of Jesus.
The love of Jesus. He's Icewater. I'm Puma, and this is The Fight Game.